So remember that: past, present, future pleasure, future pain. It's a great way to get to know people, to build relationships, to mature, to sell, you name it. A powerful, powerful script for getting to know, leading up to gaining commitment and closing. Hey guys, welcome to the show. It's Brian Icenhower, and today we are going to talk a little bit about what I feel is the most powerful real estate script there is. I'm going to make that bold statement. Okay. These aren't just real estate sales script. This is like a real estate conversation, if you will, for gaining commitment and closing and persuading. I think it's the most important conversation that the top leaders are able to have, and you can have it at every level. It is the key script. And what it really amounts to is just a series of questions that you know how to ask. And they provide you tremendous flexibility. You just got to kind of know how to ask them. And I'm going to help you with that. But if you get lots of flexibility at it with it, but there is a formula and it is a script, but it's really a series of questions that you can take. It helps you take control of conversations, yet still lets people self-discover to make decisions that are typically in alignment with where you'd like to see them, hopefully for their best interests, So for persuasion, this is for real estate leaders at the highest levels. It's also for solo agents listing a house. Oftentimes, you're selling, not just on behalf of your client, but, you're trying to persuade your client to make the right decisions. No one wants to list their home for the right price. Their price is always higher, right? No one wants to buy a home for the right price. Their price is always lower. So there's lots of, there's lots of conversations there, let alone with others. So all the way up from solo agent to leadership. I mean, if you take a look at it, what we're doing by using a series of questions, we're using a self-discovery method. So we're asking questions to the other person so that the other person self-discovers on their own that their best solution is to do what you want them to, list it lower. That they'll just discover, but it takes a lot of patience on your part, because you do have to ask questions, and it takes them a while, and they argue and they kick and they fight. But that's true salesmanship, is that patience and those questions. So that's the key. So I don't like using the word script out there, even though everybody else wants scripts. They're just not as effective. I know we all want to get out there. No one wants to be a salesman, yet we want to just kind of tell everybody everything and have them listen to everything, but they just won't. But you'll gain a firm commitment that they won't back out of, that they won't relist with someone else, that they won't refuse to reduce, that they won't refuse and get buyer's remorse on or whatever later. If they make that decision on their own and they see the light on their own, and they just don't take a leap of faith all the time and believe you on it, especially on big decisions. More and more important, the bigger you get, that we implement self-discovery. The most important decisions we have in the real estate industry, it's when we are selling, real estate, buying and selling property, those types of, to lead generate, those types of conversations. And they will help there in conversations about hiring, acquiring talent, getting people to work with you, getting people to join your team, recruiting. This conversation is powerful up in those angles as well, too. So we want to make sure that this conversation is something we mastered. I refer to it as the needs analysis, kind of loosely. It's my needs analysis, I think, at this point. There are many different versions of it out there that are tested all over the place, but this is the way I coach it and have been coaching it for quite some time now, many decades. So I'm going to kind of explain it to you, but basically there's 4 major steps, and they're pretty easy, okay? The first one is past, okay? The second one is present. The third one is future pleasure. The fourth one is future pain. Those are the 4 steps right there. And we've got to learn how to ask those questions around past, present, future pleasure, future pain, in that order. And that's the force. And then the questions are really simple. We're going to ask questions about the person to explain, like, let's say I'm in a listing presentation. I sit down and I say, tell me about your house. Tell me why you want to move. They're going to tell me about themselves. They're going to tell you about where they work and how they got here and how long they lived there and then why they want to move, right? So they're going to tell me their past leading up to where we are now, their present, which is why I want to move. That's present. And then why do we want to move? Well, we want to move future pleasure, all these reasons. Well, we don't want to move. What happens if you don't move? Well, it's pain. All these reasons. We got to go to this school or do this or do that, or it's too small. We don't have the space or whatever. So they're going to go through pain. So that whole process is past. How do we get here? It's almost like, think of it as a listing consultation or a buyer consultation, right? Same is true with humans and recruiting. We should do the same thing. We sit down and we are going to gain commitment with humans the same way. We're going to ask them about their past, and we're going to spend lots of time listening to their past. And this is where a lot of people have a hard time, is they're just not patient enough in the past process. So we're going to learn about it. It's so important to spend a lot of time there, the most time there, to really get to know someone, and also to let the marlin run. And this is a really important concept I want you to get in the world of recruiting, talent acquisition, empire building, leading leaders. Anytime you're working with lots of talented people and leaders, they don't want to be sold. It's very important to get to know people on a deeper level. So you really want to have long conversations. And I know that's not fun for people because it takes patience. It does, but there's nothing more important that you can be doing in this industry than aligning yourself with other talented individuals and leaders. So this is where you need to roll up your sleeves and go to work and get to know talented individuals so that you can succeed through others, right? So you're gonna need to get to know them, and letting the marlin run is key. And marlin is a type of fish, the trophy sport fishing fish, the big ones with the big sail and the pointy nose, kind of top of the sport fishing food chain, right? And they're huge, hundreds of pounds. And if you hook into like a 500-pound blue marlin, there's a good chance you're going to be working for a while, because that marlin's going to take a lot of that line on your fishing reel and run with it. He's going to go way out, miles and miles and miles to sea. And you're going to see that fishing reel spin real fast as that marlin is taking line and he's running out further and further. And your reel is getting hot and the water's come off it now, and you're worried it's going to smoke and it's burning. And you're kind of frustrated because you're gonna have to reel this thing in, and you really want the fish, but the further it goes out, the more terribly hard work you're gonna have to do, and how it's gonna hurt your back and your knees and your legs and arms and everything trying to pull that thing in. It's very frustrating. It takes patience, and especially if you're a leader and you're very successful, and you got to sit there with a newer licensee or someone who's maybe not at your level of success, and be patient and hear about their whole life history. But you have to do it. And the reason you have to do it, because if you don't, I can tell you right now, you're not going to get to know them. That's like our interview. Is this the person we want anyway? What do I need to know? What are his needs? What are things what are some objections I'm going to have to overcome when it comes time to gaining commitment later? Because right now I'm just getting to know them. So I'm trying to look for red flags, things that may not be a fit, things that could really be a fit that we can align ourselves with. So I'm actively listening, because this could be talent. I know it can be frustrating sometimes, and it can be very, very humbling, but it's very important that we are patient for this, because what's going to happen if we don't let that marlin run and we start reeling right away? A, we're going to hurt ourselves. B, it's going to break the line and get away. So we have to be patient and wait until the fish gets tired. And once the marlin gets tired, it'll be easier to reel him in. And that's the strategy. We have to let them talk about their whole life story. Then they'll be willing to listen to us and talk about it. But if we start getting into like, here's my sales pitch and here's why I think you'd be a good fit, then they're going to start saying, well, you don't know about this about me, and then there's this, and I've done this too. And see, the marlin's not done fighting yet. That fish isn't ready to come into the boat. You got to let them run, so you know all that stuff already, and they don't use it as objections to your suggestions. You've already heard it all. They've played their hand. Now you've got all the information. You haven't said anything about you, which makes you look good. You're not a pushy salesman. You're not a harsh recruiter. You just sat back and waited. You let the marlin run. They're tired. Now they've said everything they needed to, and they're ready to listen to you. And you look patient, you look understanding, you look like a good leader, you look professional. It's pretty amazing. Then we get to present, right? Present is step 2. That's a really easy one. We're just going to ask their list. Okay, so they're going to say, then you're going to say, why are we here? Where are you looking to go? And what do you need? Whether it's listing a house, or maybe they're considering a job change or whatever. Get a list of all their needs. Here's what I'm looking for. Okay, maybe things they don't want. And then we're going to talk about their future pleasure. Moving into step 2 is pretty easy too, where you want to go. So what are you looking to do right now, in 5 years, in 10 years? What's your goal? Why? And then really tap into the why. Why? I want to know about their kids and the young family. And I want to know how it would make them feel to have a big house in the school district they want, or whatever. Or to have that extra home if someone's going to work for you, or a retirement plan, or whatever. I want to know how it's going to make them feel. I really want to have a lot of conversations, right? Because I'm getting to a point where I want to excite them now. So I really want them to experience the emotion of walking on the beach at that beach home, or whatever, or their kids going to Harvard because they got into that great high school because they bought a home in that wonderful school district. I want them to experience it. I want them to stay there for a minute in their mind, because then I want to go to future pain next. And future pain is really simple. What happens if you don't move? What happens if you don't get this job? What happens if you don't change this behavior? What happens if you don't buy this? Well, now we're back to the problem we've got right now, and you're just going to keep on keeping on. I want to know what the pain is if this doesn't work out. So I want them to remember right now what the pleasure is and the pain right now, because right now that next step is where I can move forward and start obtaining commitment, right? Because right now they realize, wow, there's a lot of motivation right now. I just remembered all the reasons to do it. And what happens if I don't? That all sucks. So right now they've thought of all that. So they can make decisions. So that's basically, now we move into objection handling mode. What's holding you back? Things like that. But the script is that patient part up front. It's the needs analysis part. That's the part I want you to get, because we can have that. How we convert and close and handle objections is different depending on the type of conversation, whether it's recruiting, whether it's hiring, whether it's gaining relationships, converting buyers, sellers, agents, whatnot. That's different for everybody. But that needs analysis, that's how you build relationships. It's how you get to know people. It's how you gain trust. It's how you really, really, really tap into motivation and motivate people. It's the way you coach people. It's the way you lead people. I'd be having regular needs analyses with the leaders on my team every single year to make sure that we're in alignment and they're motivated and they realize what they're doing is getting them where they want to go. Because it's amazing how much we can get off kilter on that kind of stuff, right? So remember that: past, present, future pleasure, future pain. It's a great way to get to know people, to build relationships, to mature, to sell, you name it. A powerful, powerful script for getting to know, leading up to gaining commitment and closing. Because now they've self-discovered the entire problem, and they're ready to make a move. And that's the key. Having hardcore, tricky scripts like, oh yeah, and then they agree, hey, they don't feel good. It's hard to make them a repeat client. It can hit really wrong with the wrong people at the wrong time. It doesn't feel good. But getting people to self-discover on their own feels like more of a consultative approach, and really resonates with people coming back and referring people to you and appreciating the process that they came through. And it really creates a secure, binding commitment to whatever it is, because they authored it themselves. And people have a very hard time saying no to their own goals. And when they author them, they tend to be stuck with them. So good for us. Okay, so I hope that helps, guys. Thanks again. Use the needs analysis is what I believe is the most powerful real estate script in the industry. All right, gang. Hope this helps. See you next time. Thanks again.